I found the security camera footage on a Tuesday morning while drinking my coffee, and what I saw made me nearly spit out my drink across my kitchen counter. 3 people wearing matching polo shirts with the Riverside Meadows HOA logo were methodically dumping bags of garbage onto the back corner of my property, right next to my garden shed. This was not some random act of littering. This was deliberate, coordinated, and absolutely insane. My name is Xavier Hendricks, and I had lived in Riverside Meadows, a planned community in Henderson, Nevada, for exactly 8 months. 8 months of increasingly hostile interactions with our homeowners association, which was run by a woman named Patricia Morrison, who seemed to believe she was the queen of our little suburban kingdom. From day one, she had made it clear that she did not like me, my modest landscaping choices, or the fact that I worked from home and actually used my driveway during business hours. The footage was crystal clear. I had installed 4 high-definition security cameras around my property 3 weeks earlier, after someone kept leaving violation notices on my door for infractions I had not committed. My grass was supposedly too long when I had just mowed it. My trash cans were visible from the street on a non-collection day even though they were in my garage. My mailbox was the wrong shade of black. The complaints were endless and increasingly absurd. But this was a whole new level of crazy. I watched the video 3 times, taking careful notes. The timestamp showed 6:47 a.m. on Monday morning. I had been at the gym, which explained why I had not heard anything. Patricia Morrison herself was there, along with 2 other HOA board members I recognized. A man named Gerald Foster, who always wore those ridiculous wraparound sunglasses, and a woman named Susan Carmichael, who had once threatened to fine me because my dog barked at a squirrel. They arrived in Gerald's white pickup truck. The bed was loaded with at least 8 large black garbage bags. They parked on the street behind my property line, then carried the bags one by one to my backyard. They were not even trying to hide what they were doing. They just dumped everything in a pile, got back in the truck, and drove away. The whole operation took less than 10 minutes. I sat back in my chair and stared at my laptop screen. Why would they do this? What possible reason could they have for dumping trash on my property? Then it hit me. They were setting me up. They would come back later, probably today, take photos of the garbage, and issue me a massive fine for improper waste disposal and property maintenance violations. It was exactly the kind of petty, vindictive nonsense Patricia would pull. I saved the footage to 3 different locations: my computer, an external hard drive, and cloud storage. Then I grabbed my phone and headed outside to document everything before I touched anything. The morning sun was already heating up the Nevada desert air. It was going to be another scorcher, probably hitting 95 degrees by afternoon. The pile of garbage bags sat exactly where I had seen them dumped in the video. I took photos from every angle, making sure to capture the time and date stamps. Then I carefully opened one of the bags. The smell hit me first. Rotten food, used coffee filters, and what looked like several days' worth of household trash. I opened another bag, more of the same plus some junk mail. I picked up one of the envelopes and my eyes widened. It was addressed to Patricia Morrison at 1247 Sycamore Lane, Riverside Meadows. Bingo. I went through each bag methodically, pulling out any mail or documents that had names or addresses. Every single piece of identifiable trash belonged to either Patricia, Gerald, or Susan. They had not even been smart enough to sort out their personal information. There were bank statements, credit card offers, Amazon shipping labels, pizza delivery receipts, everything you would find in a normal person's garbage. Except they had decided to make it my problem. My phone rang. The caller ID showed Riverside Meadows HOA. I let it go to voicemail. 30 seconds later, the phone chimed with a new message. I played it on speaker. "Mr. Hendricks, this is Patricia Morrison from the HOA board. We have received a complaint about excessive garbage and debris on your property. This is a serious violation of our community standards. Someone will be by this afternoon to document the issue and assess fines. Please be available to discuss this matter. Have a nice day." Her voice was sickeningly sweet, the tone of someone who thought they had already won. I almost laughed. They really thought this would work. They really believed they could just dump their garbage on my property, fine me for it, and I would either pay up or move out. That was probably the end goal here. Make my life so miserable that I would sell my house and leave. Not happening. I spent the next hour going through every piece of trash, separating anything with identifying information. I had a solid collection of evidence proving exactly whose garbage this was. Then, I loaded all 8 bags into my truck. If they wanted their trash on someone's property so badly, I would be happy to oblige. Patricia Morrison lived in the largest house in Riverside Meadows, a gaudy Mediterranean-style McMansion with a fountain in the front yard and more square footage than any 2 people could possibly need. She lived there with her husband Frank, who I had met exactly once. He seemed like a quiet guy who had learned long ago that the path of least resistance was to just let Patricia do whatever she wanted. I drove past her house first, just to scope it out. Her silver Lexus was in the driveway, which meant she was home. Perfect. But I could not just dump the trash on her lawn in broad daylight. Even though they had done exactly that to me, I was not stupid enough to give them any legitimate ammunition. I needed to be smarter about this. I drove to Gerald Foster's house next. He lived 3 streets over in a craftsman-style home that he had painted an aggressive shade of yellow that somehow met HOA approval despite being visible from space. His pickup truck was gone. Nobody home. Susan Carmichael lived on the opposite end of the neighborhood in a 2-story colonial that looked like every other house on her street. Her car was also gone. An idea started forming in my mind. A better idea than just dumping their trash back on their lawns, though that thought was certainly tempting. I needed to document everything, do this properly, and make sure there was no possible way they could twist this situation around. First stop was the Henderson Police Department on East Lake Mead Parkway. I walked in with my laptop, the evidence bags of mail and documents I had pulled from the garbage, and a thumb drive containing the security footage. The officer at the front desk looked like he would rather be literally anywhere else, but he perked up a little when I explained why I was there. "So let me get this straight," Officer Martinez said after listening to my story. "Your HOA dumped their personal garbage on your property, and you have video footage of them doing it?" "Yes, sir. Along with documents from the garbage bags proving it belongs to them. I have not touched the bags except to document what's inside. They are all still on my property right now." He scratched his chin. "That's technically illegal dumping and trespassing since they came onto your property without permission. But HOA disputes are usually civil matters unless there's significant property damage or threats. They are planning to fine me for having this garbage on my property. Garbage that they put there. Is not that fraud? Could be. Let me get a detective down here. This is weird enough that someone should definitely look at it." 45 minutes later, I was sitting in a small conference room with Detective Sarah Chen, walking her through the entire timeline of my problems with the HOA. She watched the security footage 3 times, examined the evidence I had collected, and took detailed notes. "Mr. Hendricks, I am going to be honest with you. This is one of the stranger complaints I have seen this month, and trust me, We get some weird ones. But you have done everything right. You documented everything, you did not destroy evidence, and you came to us before taking any action yourself. The problem is, proving illegal dumping is tricky. It's usually a misdemeanor, and unless there are hazardous materials involved, it's not high priority. My heart sank. So they are just going to get away with it. I did not say that. What I am saying is that this is probably more effective as leverage in a civil case. You could sue them personally and the HOA for harassment, illegal dumping, trespassing, and probably a few other things. With this evidence, you would likely win. But from a criminal prosecution standpoint, the district attorney probably would not prioritize it unless there's a pattern of similar behavior. There is a pattern. They have been harassing me for 8 months. Harassment is different. Do you have documentation of all the violations they have claimed against you? Every single one. I have photos proving the violations were false, dated, and time-stamped. Detective Chen smiled. Then you have a really strong civil case. Here's what I recommend. File a police report today for the illegal dumping and trespassing. That creates an official record. Then contact a lawyer who specializes in HOA disputes. Nevada has pretty strong laws protecting homeowners from abusive HOAs. You might be surprised how quickly they back down once they realize you are serious about fighting back. I thanked her and spent another 30 minutes filing the official police report. Officer Martinez took additional photos of my evidence and made copies of everything for their records. By the time I left the police station, it was past noon, and I had missed 3 more calls from Patricia Morrison. Next stop was finding a lawyer. I did a quick search on my phone and found a law firm in Henderson that specialized in HOA disputes, Matthews and Associates. Their website featured several case results where they had won significant judgments against abusive homeowners associations. I called and explained my situation to the receptionist. Mr. Hendricks, you are in luck. We actually had a cancellation this afternoon. Can you be here at 2 p.m.? Absolutely. I grabbed lunch at a drive-thru and made it to the law office with 10 minutes to spare. Matthews and Associates operated out of a modern office building on Stephanie Street. The lobby was professional but not pretentious, which I took as a good sign. I had been worried about lawyers who charged thousands of dollars just to say hello. Daniel Matthews himself came out to meet me. He was younger than I expected, maybe late 30s, with the kind of energetic handshake that suggested he actually enjoyed his job. We sat in his office and I went through the whole story again, showing him the footage and the evidence. "This is incredible," he said, leaning back in his chair. "I have been practicing HOA law for 12 years, and I have never seen anything quite this blatant. Usually the harassment is more subtle. Selective enforcement of rules, that kind of thing, but this is illegal activity caught on camera with clear proof of who did it. So what are my options? Lots of them. First, we send a cease and desist letter to the HOA board with copies of the police report and still images from your security footage. We inform them that any attempt to fine you for this garbage will result in immediate legal action. We also demand they remove the trash from your property at their expense within 24 hours. And if they refuse, then we file a lawsuit for harassment, illegal dumping, trespassing, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and abuse of authority. We name Patricia Morrison, Gerald Foster, and Susan Carmichael personally, as well as the HOA itself. We also file an injunction preventing them from issuing any fines or violations against you until the case is resolved. With this evidence, I am very confident we would win. What about costs? I work on contingency for cases like this. You do not pay unless we win, and based on what you have shown me, we are going to win. I would expect a settlement offer pretty quickly once they realize how much trouble they are in. I felt tension I had not realized I was carrying start to drain from my shoulders. When can we start? I will have the cease and desist letter drafted and sent today. Certified mail, so they have to sign for it. Should arrive tomorrow morning. In the meantime, do not touch that garbage. Leave it exactly where it is. It is evidence now. We shook hands and I headed back home. It was almost 4 p.m. by the time I pulled into my driveway. Patricia's Lexus was parked on the street in front of my house. She was standing on my front lawn with Gerald and Susan, taking photos of something with her phone. When she saw me, her face lit up with a vindictive smile. "Mr. Hendricks, there you are. We have been trying to reach you all day." I got out of my truck and walked toward them. I was busy. "What are you doing on my property?" "Documenting serious violations of our community standards. There is a massive pile of garbage behind your house. This is absolutely unacceptable." "I know about the garbage, Patricia. I also know how it got there." Her smile faltered just a fraction. "I do not know what you mean. The source of the garbage is irrelevant. You are responsible for the condition of your property, and this is a major violation. We are issuing a $500 fine, effective immediately. If the garbage is not removed by tomorrow, the fine will increase to $100 per day." Gerald and Susan nodded along like bobbleheads. I almost felt sorry for them. Almost. "Patricia, you know what illegal dumping is?" "Excuse me, illegal dumping." It is when someone disposes of waste on property they do not own without permission. It is a crime in Nevada. Trespassing is also a crime, in case you were wondering. The color started draining from her face. "I have no idea what you are talking about." I pulled out my phone and opened the video file. "Really? Because I have security footage from yesterday morning showing you Gerald and Susan dumping 8 bags of garbage on my property. Would you like to see it?" The silence that followed was beautiful. Patricia's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Gerald took a step backward. Susan looked like she might throw up. You cannot. Where did you get that?" Patricia finally sputtered. "From my security cameras. The ones I installed 3 weeks ago." "I also went through the garbage and found mail and documents belonging to all 3 of you. I filed a police report this morning for illegal dumping and trespassing. I also hired a lawyer. So no, I will not be paying any fine. But you 3 are going to remove every single bag of garbage from my property by tomorrow morning, or my lawyer will file a lawsuit so fast it will make your head spin." "You are bluffing," Patricia said, but her voice had lost all its confidence. "Am I? My lawyer's name is Daniel Matthews. Feel free to look him up. He specializes in HOA disputes. Apparently he loves cases like this. Something about abusive board members who think they are above the law." Gerald found his voice. "Now hold on. Let's not be hasty here. I am sure we can work something out." "Oh, we are going to work something out. You are going to remove your garbage from my property. You are going to stop harassing me with fake violations. And you are going to leave me alone. If you do all that, maybe I will not pursue criminal charges or a civil lawsuit. Maybe. This is outrageous." Patricia's face had gone from pale to bright red. "You cannot threaten us like this." "I am not threatening anyone. I am just explaining the consequences of your actions. You dumped garbage on my property and tried to fine me for it. That was your choice. Now you get to deal with the results." I walked past them toward my front door. "Oh, and Patricia, you are still on my property without permission. That is trespassing. I suggest you leave before I call the police." They left. Patricia was muttering under her breath, but they got in Gerald's truck and drove away. I went inside and immediately called Daniel Matthews. They showed up, I told him. Tried to issue the fine just like I predicted. I showed them the video and mentioned I had hired you. They did not take it well. He laughed. I bet they did not. Good work. Do not engage with them anymore. Let me handle all communication from here on out. I will have that cease and desist letter ready within the hour. That evening, I sat on my back porch and looked at the pile of garbage bags still sitting by my shed. My initial anger had faded into something more like grim satisfaction. They had tried to screw me over and it had backfired spectacularly. But I knew this was not over. People like Patricia Morrison did not give up easily. She would fight back somehow. The next morning, I was proven right. I woke up to find a notice taped to my front door. It was an emergency HOA board meeting scheduled for that evening to discuss serious violations and behavioral issues involving a community member. They did not name me specifically, but it was pretty obvious who they meant. I took a photo of the notice and texted it to Daniel Matthews. His response came back immediately. Do not attend. They are trying to ambush you. I will be there representing your interests. Can you do that? I texted back. Nevada law requires HOAs to allow homeowners to have attorney representation at board meetings. They hate it, but they cannot stop me. See you at 7 p.m. The meeting was held in the community clubhouse, a building near the neighborhood entrance that mostly sat empty except for monthly HOA meetings and the occasional birthday party rental. I showed up at 6:55 p.m. with Daniel Matthews. About 20 other homeowners were already there, which was unusual. Normally, these meetings only attracted the board members and maybe one or two residents who had specific complaints. Patricia sat at a table at the front of the room with Gerald and Susan flanking her. When she saw me walk in with Daniel, her expression could have curdled milk. Mr. Hendricks, this is a closed board meeting. You are not invited. Daniel spoke before I could respond. Actually, Nevada Revised Statutes Section 116.3108 requires all HOA meetings to be open to homeowners, unless discussing specific legal matters. This appears to be a general board meeting, so my client has every right to attend. I am Daniel Matthews, Mr. Hendricks' legal counsel. Patricia's jaw clenched. Fine, but you do not have permission to speak. Nevada law also guarantees homeowners the right to speak at board meetings, but I will be doing the speaking on behalf of my client. Thank you for clarifying that. We sat in the front row. I could feel the other homeowners watching us with curiosity. Patricia called the meeting to order and rushed through some standard business about landscaping contracts and pool maintenance. Then she got to what she really wanted to discuss. The board has become aware of a serious situation involving one of our homeowners. Multiple violations of community standards, including improper waste disposal and verbal harassment of board members. The board is prepared to issue fines totaling $2,000 and initiate foreclosure proceedings if these fines are not paid within 30 days. A murmur went through the crowd. Foreclosure was serious business. That meant putting a lien on my house and potentially forcing a sale to cover the fines. Daniel stood up. Mrs. Morrison, before you continue, I need to inform the board that Mr. Hendricks has filed a police report for illegal dumping and trespassing against you, Mr. Foster, and Mrs. Carmichael. We have video evidence showing the three of you dumping garbage on his property, which you then attempted to fine him for. This is fraud, harassment, and abuse of your positions as board members. If you proceed with any fines or foreclosure action, we will immediately file a lawsuit against the three of you personally, as well as the HOA. The murmur turned into actual talking. People were looking at Patricia with confusion and suspicion. She held up a hand for silence. That is ridiculous. Mr. Matthews, your client is clearly making false accusations to avoid legitimate fines for violations he committed. I have the security footage right here if anyone would like to see it. I also have the police report filed with the Henderson Police Department. Additionally, we found mail and personal documents in the garbage bags proving they belong to you and the other board members. Would you like me to present this evidence to everyone here? Patricia's face went through several shades of red. This meeting is over. Everyone needs to leave. Now. Not so fast, said a voice from the back of the room. A man I recognized as living a few streets over stood up. His name was Robert something. I would like to see this evidence. If board members are dumping garbage on residents' property and then fining them for it, that affects all of us. Me too, said a woman near the middle. I have gotten 3 bogus violations in the last month. My grass was supposedly too long on a day when it rained and I could not mow. This sounds like a pattern. Other voices joined in. Patricia was losing control of the room fast. Daniel seized the opportunity. He pulled out his laptop and connected it to the projector that was set up for the meeting. Within seconds, the security footage was playing on the wall for everyone to see. You could have heard a pin drop. Everyone watched as Patricia, Gerald, and Susan methodically carried bags of garbage onto my property and dumped them. The timestamp was clear. The HOA logos on their shirts were visible. There was no ambiguity about what was happening. When the video ended, the room erupted. People were shouting questions, demanding explanations. Several homeowners were recording the whole thing on their phones. Patricia looked like she wanted to crawl under the table and disappear. "Okay, everyone calm down," she shouted. "This is taken out of context. We were trying to teach Mr. Hendricks a lesson about proper property maintenance. By committing crimes," someone yelled. "This is insane." Another voice added. "How long has this been going on?" Daniel let the chaos continue for a moment, then spoke loudly enough to get everyone's attention. "The board has clearly violated their fiduciary duty to the homeowners of this community. They have engaged in harassment, fraud, and illegal activity. Under Nevada law, homeowners have the right to recall board members through a petition signed by at least 10% of homeowners. I suggest you all consider that option." Robert, the man who had spoken earlier, stood up again. "I will start the petition tonight. I have had enough of this. My wife and I have been dealing with harassment from this board since we moved here. Who else wants to sign?" At least 15 hands went up. Patricia tried to regain control one more time. "This is completely inappropriate. We were elected to our positions and we are not going anywhere. You do not have the authority to remove us." "Actually, they do," Daniel said calmly. Nevada Revised Statutes Section 116.3103(4) provides clear procedures for removing board members. You should probably read it. Patricia gathered her papers and stood up. "Fine. If that's how you want it, we will see you in court. This meeting is adjourned." She stormed out with Gerald and Susan trailing behind her. The remaining homeowners clustered around me and Daniel, asking questions, sharing their own stories of HOA harassment. It turned out Patricia and her friends had been systematically targeting multiple people in the neighborhood for years. Selective enforcement of rules, arbitrary fines, threats of foreclosure. I was just the latest victim and the first one to actually fight back. Robert collected email addresses from everyone who wanted to help with the recall petition. By the time people started leaving, he had commitments from nearly 30 homeowners. The neighborhood only had 150 houses total, so that was a significant percentage. "This went better than expected," Daniel said as we walked to our cars. "You have community support now. That changes everything." Patricia probably realizes she is in serious trouble. What happens next? We wait and see if they comply with the cease and desist letter I sent. They have until tomorrow at 5 p.m. to remove the garbage from your property. If they do not, we file the lawsuit. Either way, I think you are going to be fine. They picked the wrong guy to mess with. I went home feeling better than I had in months, but I still set my alarm for 6 a.m. the next morning. I wanted to see if they would actually show up to remove their garbage. At 6:30 a.m., Gerald's pickup truck pulled up in front of my house. He was alone this time. He looked tired and defeated as he walked into my backyard and started loading the garbage bags into his truck bed. I watched from my kitchen window, coffee in hand. It took him 3 trips to get all the bags. He never knocked on my door or tried to talk to me. He just loaded the garbage and left. I texted Daniel. They removed the garbage. Good. That shows they are taking the threat seriously. Now we see if they leave you alone. For a week, nothing happened. No violation notices appeared on my door. No phone calls from Patricia. The neighborhood was quiet. Robert reported that the recall petition had over 60 signatures and was growing daily. He planned to submit it to the HOA within the next week. Then, on Friday evening, I got an email from an address I did not recognize. The subject line read, "We need to talk." The email was from Frank Morrison, Patricia's husband. He wrote that he wanted to meet with me privately to discuss the situation. He suggested a coffee shop in downtown Henderson, neutral territory. He said he was not there to threaten or argue, just to talk. I forwarded the email to Daniel. Is this a good idea? Probably a trap. But I am curious what he wants. If you go, meet in a very public place. Record the conversation if Nevada is a one-party consent state for recording. I looked it up. Nevada required all parties to consent to recording, so much for that idea. But I was curious too. I had only met Frank once and he had seemed completely different from his wife. Quiet, reasonable, almost embarrassed by Patricia's behavior. I replied to his email agreeing to meet Saturday morning at a Starbucks on Sunset Road. When I arrived, Frank was already there at a corner table, nursing what looked like a regular coffee. He stood up when he saw me and offered his hand. "Xavier, thank you for coming. I know you have no reason to trust me right now." We sat down. Frank looked exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes and the kind of slumped posture that suggested he was carrying a heavy weight. "I will get right to the point," he said. "My wife is a stubborn woman who does not know when to quit, but she went way too far this time. What she did to you was wrong, illegal, and completely indefensible. I told her not to do it. I told her she was going to get sued or arrested or both. She did not listen. So why are you here?" "Because I am trying to minimize the damage. Patricia is talking about doubling down, fighting you in court, making your life hell until you give up. I know her. She will spend every penny we have on lawyers rather than admit she was wrong. But if this goes to court, we will lose. I have seen your evidence. It is airtight. So what do you want from me? A deal. Patricia resigns from the HOA board immediately. So do Gerald and Susan. The HOA drops all fines and violations against you, past and present. In exchange, you do not pursue criminal charges or a civil lawsuit." I sat back and thought about it. Why would I agree to that? Your wife dumped garbage on my property and tried to fine me for it. She has been harassing me for 8 months. Why should I let her just resign and walk away? Because a lawsuit will take years and cost everyone money. Even if you win, actually collecting a judgment can be difficult. And because if Patricia stays on the board, she will keep making your life miserable. She will drag this out as long as possible just out of spite. But if she resigns, it is over. You win. The neighborhood gets new board members who will hopefully be sane. Everyone moves on. He had a point. A lawsuit would be satisfying, but it would also be exhausting. More meetings, more documentation, more stress. And Patricia really did seem like the type to fight tooth and nail just to avoid admitting defeat. I need to talk to my lawyer. Of course. I just wanted to plant the seed. Think about it. Patricia does not know I am here, by the way. If she did, we would probably be getting divorced right now. But I have been married to her for 24 years and I am tired of watching her bully people. She needs to stop. We talked for a few more minutes, then parted ways. I called Daniel from my truck. It could be legitimate, he said after I explained the conversation. Or it could be a stalling tactic. If they resign from the board, it makes it harder to hold the HOA itself liable since the offending members would no longer be in charge. On the other hand, you would get what you really want, which is for them to leave you alone. What do you recommend? Let me draft a settlement agreement with very specific terms. They resign, all violations are dropped and expunged from your record, and they sign an agreement never to run for the HOA board again. We also include a clause that if they violate the agreement in any way, they automatically owe you $50,000 in liquidated damages. That way you have a hammer if they try anything else. And if Patricia refuses to sign, then we file the lawsuit and let the chips fall where they may. But my guess is Frank can convince her. He seems like a guy who has had enough. Daniel sent me the draft agreement Monday afternoon. It was 5 pages of legal language that boiled down to exactly what we had discussed. I forwarded it to Frank's email with a simple message. This is the deal. Take it or leave it. 2 days passed with no response. I started to think Patricia had vetoed the whole thing and we were headed to court. Then on Wednesday evening, I got an email from Frank with a PDF attachment. 3 signatures: Patricia Morrison, Gerald Foster, and Susan Carmichael. They had all signed. We accept your terms, Frank wrote. Resignations will be submitted to the HOA tomorrow. I am sorry for everything. You did not deserve any of this. I forwarded the signed agreement to Daniel. We did it. Yes, you did. Congratulations. Keep that agreement in a safe place. If they violate it, we will own them. The next morning, the neighborhood email list exploded with activity. Patricia, Gerald, and Susan had all resigned from the HOA board, effective immediately. No explanation was given, just brief resignation letters. Robert, the man leading the recall effort, sent out a celebratory message saying the petition would still move forward to ensure the next board was properly elected by the homeowners. Over the next few weeks, life in Riverside Meadows slowly returned to normal. A special election was held to fill the 3 empty board positions. Robert won one of the seats, along with 2 other reasonable people who actually seemed interested in managing the community rather than playing power games. The new board's first action was to review and overturn dozens of improper fines that Patricia had issued over the years. I ran into Frank Morrison one more time at a grocery store in Henderson about a month after everything settled. He was alone, loading bags into his car. He saw me and gave a small wave. "How are things?" I asked. "Different. Patricia is still angry, but she is finally starting to understand that she brought this on herself. We are in marriage counseling, if you can believe that. Therapist says she has control issues." He laughed without humor. "Yeah, no kidding. I am sorry you got caught in the middle of all this. Do not be. I should have stood up to her years ago. You did me a favor, honestly. Made me realize I had been enabling her behavior. So thank you, I guess. Even though that is a weird thing to say." We said goodbye, and I never saw him again. Patricia kept her word and stayed away from HOA business. I heard through the neighborhood grapevine that she had joined some kind of book club and was channeling her energy there instead. God help those book club members. As for me, I finally started to actually enjoy living in Riverside Meadows. Without constant harassment and fake violations, it was actually a nice neighborhood. Good neighbors, well-maintained common areas, reasonable rules that were enforced fairly. The new HOA board even apologized to me formally at a community meeting and presented me with a gift card to a local restaurant as a gesture of goodwill. "We are sorry for how you were treated," Robert said. "That should never have happened. We are committed to making sure this HOA operates transparently and fairly going forward." I appreciated the gesture, even though a gift card did not exactly make up for 8 months of hell. But it was the thought that counted. They were trying to make things right. Daniel Matthews and I stayed in touch. He told me my case had actually helped him win 2 other HOA disputes because word had spread about Patricia Morrison's downfall. Apparently abusive HOA board members all over Henderson were suddenly a lot more careful about how they treated homeowners, worried that they might be the next ones caught on camera doing something stupid. "You struck a blow for reasonable people everywhere," Daniel told me over lunch one day. "Most people do not fight back against their HOAs because it seems too hard or too expensive. You proved it can be done." About 6 months after the garbage dumping incident, I was working from home when my doorbell rang. I opened it to find a woman in her 30s holding a manila folder. She introduced herself as Jennifer Park, a reporter for the Henderson Times, a local newspaper. "Mr. Hendricks, I am working on a story about HOA abuse in Nevada. Your case with Patricia Morrison has come up multiple times in my research. Would you be willing to talk to me about what happened?" I hesitated. The whole situation was behind me now. Did I really want to dredge it all up again for a newspaper article? "I know it is probably the last thing you want to revisit," Jennifer said, reading my expression. "But I have interviewed 6 other homeowners who went through similar situations. Most of them did not have video evidence like you did, so they just paid the bogus fines and lived with the harassment. Your story could help people understand that they have rights and options." She had a point. I invited her in and we talked for over an hour. I showed her the security footage, the police report, all of it. She took careful notes and asked good questions. She also told me about the other cases she was investigating, and it was shocking how common HOA abuse was. There was one woman in Las Vegas whose HOA fined her $10,000 because her roses were the wrong shade of pink, Jennifer said. "Pink roses. They foreclosed on her house when she could not pay the fine. She lost her home over flowers. That is insane. It happens more than you think." HOAs have tremendous power in Nevada. They can fine you, put liens on your house, and even foreclose. Most people do not know how to fight back, so they either pay or lose their homes. It is a huge problem. The article ran 2 weeks later on the front page of the Henderson Times. It was titled HOA Horror Stories, When Homeowner Associations Go Too Far. My case was featured prominently, along with those other homeowners Jennifer had interviewed. The article included a still image from my security footage showing Patricia dumping garbage bags on my property. The reaction was immediate. The story got picked up by several Las Vegas news stations. I got calls from 2 different TV reporters asking if I would do on-camera interviews. I declined. I had made my point, and I did not need to become the public face of HOA reform. But other people from the article did agree to interviews. And suddenly, HOA abuse was a major topic of conversation in local media. A state senator from Las Vegas even announced she was introducing legislation to reform HOA laws in Nevada, making it easier for homeowners to fight back against abusive boards and creating penalties for board members who misused their authority. I did not know if the law would pass, but it was encouraging that people were paying attention. Life continued settling into a comfortable routine. The new HOA board was competent and fair. My lawn got a little too long once because I was traveling for work, and they sent me a polite reminder to mow it when I got back. No fine, no threat, just a friendly heads up. That was how it should work. I never did return Patricia's garbage to her doorstep the way I had originally fantasized about. Turns out I did not need to. The security footage and police report were more effective than any petty revenge could have been. Sometimes the best response to people who try to abuse their power is simply to expose what they did and let the consequences unfold naturally. On a warm evening in late October, I was sitting on my back porch watching the sunset when my phone rang. It was Daniel Matthews. "Xavier, I just wanted to give you a heads up. Remember how I said word had spread about your case?" "Yeah, why?" "Because I just got retained by a homeowner in Arizona who is dealing with a nearly identical situation. His HOA dumped construction debris on his property and tried to fine him for it. He had security cameras too. He found your story online and reached out to me." I laughed. "So Patricia Morrison accidentally started a trend. Seems like it." Abusive HOA boards all over the Southwest are apparently using the same playbook. But now homeowners know to install cameras and document everything. You really did start something. After we hung up, I thought about everything that had happened. 8 months of harassment, garbage dumped on my lawn, threats of foreclosure, all because Patricia Morrison wanted to flex her power and make my life miserable. She had tried to force me out of my own home through intimidation and fraud. Instead, she lost her position, her reputation, and possibly saved my marriage, according to Frank. The neighborhood got better leadership. Other homeowners learned they did not have to tolerate abuse, and I got to keep my house and my peace of mind. The pile of garbage bags sitting by my shed that Tuesday morning could have been the start of a nightmare scenario. Patricia's plan might have worked if I had not installed security cameras, or if I had been too intimidated to fight back. I might have paid the fine, accepted the harassment, and eventually sold my house at a loss just to escape. But I did not. I documented everything, found a good lawyer, and stood my ground. Sometimes that is all it takes. Sometimes the bullies back down when they realize you are not going to be their victim. I still live in Riverside Meadows today. My relationship with the HOA is professional and cordial. They do their job managing common areas and enforcing reasonable rules. I maintain my property and pay my dues on time. It is boring and normal and exactly what an HOA relationship should be. Patricia Morrison still lives in the neighborhood too, 3 streets over in her oversized Mediterranean house. I see her occasionally at the grocery store or driving past my house. We do not speak. She looks away whenever she sees me, and I return the favor. Some grudges are not worth holding, but forgiveness does not mean we need to be friends. The security cameras are still installed around my property, and they will stay there. Once you have seen how quickly a situation can escalate, you learn to keep your guard up. But I do not watch the footage obsessively or worry about the next attack. The cameras are just there, quietly recording, a silent deterrent against anyone who might think about trying something stupid. Every now and then, someone from the neighborhood will stop me at the mailbox or the community pool and thank me for standing up to Patricia. They share their own stories of harassment they endured before the board changed. It is nice to know that my fight helped other people, even though that was not my original intention. I just wanted to be left alone to live my life. The HOA still sends me the occasional violation notice, but now they are legitimate things that I actually need to fix. My trash cans really were left out too long after collection day once, because I forgot to bring them in. My mailbox really did need repainting after the desert sun faded it. These are normal, reasonable requests from an organization doing its job properly. I comply with them without resentment because that is what being part of a community means. Last week, I received an invitation to run for the HOA board in the next election. Robert is stepping down after his term ends, and he suggested I might be a good replacement. I politely declined. I have no interest in the politics or the responsibility. I just want to live in my house, work from home in peace, and maintain my property without drama. But I appreciate that they asked. It shows how much things have changed. A year ago, the HOA was trying to force me out of the neighborhood. Now they are asking me to help lead it. The irony is not lost on me. My neighbor, 2 houses down, installed security cameras last month. So did the family across the street. Word has spread that cameras are a good investment if you want to protect yourself from any future HOA problems. It has become a bit of a trend in Riverside Meadows. Patricia Morrison's attempted garbage dump scheme inadvertently made the whole neighborhood more vigilant and harder to abuse. Sometimes, I wonder what would have happened if I had not installed those cameras. Would I have seen the garbage pile, assumed some random people had dumped it there, and cleaned it up without thinking much about it? Would Patricia's plan have worked? Would she have fined me anyway just based on photos, without any proof of how the trash got there? Probably. And I probably would have fought the fine, but without video evidence, it would have been my word against theirs. The HOA board would have sided with Patricia. I would have been stuck with a bogus fine and no way to prove it was fraudulent. Maybe I would have paid it just to make the problem go away. Maybe they would have kept escalating, finding new violations, issuing more fines until I finally gave up and sold my house. That was the pattern Jennifer Park described in her newspaper article. Death by 1,000 cuts. HOA boards that wanted someone gone did not need one big violation. They just needed to make life steadily more miserable until the homeowner broke. It was insidious and effective because most people did not have the time, money, or energy to fight back against every petty harassment. I got lucky. I had just enough warning to install cameras before Patricia tried her garbage scheme. I had enough savings to hire a lawyer. I had a job that gave me flexibility to attend meetings and document everything. And I had Daniel Matthews, who actually knew HOA law and was willing to fight. Not everyone has those advantages. That is what makes HOA abuse so dangerous. It disproportionately affects people who are vulnerable, who cannot afford lawyers, who do not speak English well, who are too busy working multiple jobs to attend board meetings. Those are the people who end up paying bogus fines or losing their homes. The state senator's HOA reform bill is still working its way through the Nevada legislature. I have been following its progress online. The bill would require HOAs to provide clearer documentation of violations, give homeowners more time to contest fines, and create an ombudsman office to investigate complaints about abusive boards. It is not perfect, but it is a start. I submitted written testimony supporting the bill, describing my experience with Patricia Morrison and the garbage dumping incident. I do not know if my testimony made any difference, but I felt obligated to try. If my story could help pass better laws that protect other homeowners, it was worth reliving the frustration one more time. The bill passed the state Senate last month and is now in the Assembly. If it becomes law, it will go into effect next January. Small victories, but victories nonetheless. As for Patricia Morrison, I did eventually learn what happened to her after she resigned from the HOA board. Frank's comment about marriage counseling was apparently just the beginning. According to neighborhood gossip, Patricia had something of a breakdown after losing her position. For years, being HOA president had been her entire identity. She had no job, no hobbies, no real friends, just the power trip of running the homeowners association. When that was taken away, she had nothing left. She joined the book club, like Frank mentioned, but got kicked out after 3 months for trying to take over and reorganize everything. She tried to join the board of a local charity, and the same thing happened. She volunteered at her church, and lasted 2 weeks before the pastor politely suggested she was not a good fit. Eventually, she started therapy, real therapy, and apparently began to understand that her need to control everything was pushing everyone away. I heard through the grapevine that she actually apologized to several neighbors she had harassed over the years. Not to me, mind you. I think I was a bridge too far for her to cross. But the fact that she apologized to anyone was remarkable growth for someone who had seemed utterly incapable of admitting fault. I do not know if Patricia Morrison is a better person now. I do not particularly care. She is not my problem anymore. But I hope for Frank's sake that the therapy helped. He seemed like a decent guy who had spent too many years enabling his wife's worst impulses. Maybe losing the HOA presidency was the wake-up call they both needed. Gerald Foster moved out of Riverside Meadows about 4 months after resigning from the board. I heard he took a job in Utah and relocated. Susan Carmichael is still around but keeps a very low profile. I have not spoken to either of them since that disastrous board meeting where I showed the security footage. The new HOA board has been everything the old one was not: transparent, reasonable, and actually interested in improving the community rather than wielding power over it. They started a newsletter to keep everyone informed about upcoming projects. They created a suggestion box where homeowners can submit ideas. They even organized a neighborhood barbecue last summer that actually brought people together instead of driving them apart. It is remarkable what a difference leadership makes. Same neighborhood, same houses, same people mostly. But the entire atmosphere changed once Patricia and her cronies were gone. People smile and wave now. They stop to chat at the mailbox. Kids play in the streets without their parents worrying about HOA violations for sidewalk chalk. This is what a homeowners association is supposed to be: a tool for maintaining property values and organizing community resources, not a weapon for petty tyrants to terrorize their neighbors. I am writing this story now, almost a year after the garbage dumping incident, because I want people to know that fighting back is possible. HOA abuse is real and it is damaging, but abusive boards are not all powerful. They rely on homeowners being too intimidated or too tired to push back. They rely on people not understanding their legal rights. They rely on operating in shadows where nobody is watching, shine a light on their behavior, and they scatter like cockroaches. Document everything. Install security cameras. Know your rights under your state's HOA laws. Find a lawyer if you need one. Talk to your neighbors because chances are you are not the only one being harassed. And do not be afraid to fight back when someone tries to abuse their power. Patricia Morrison dumped garbage on my property thinking it would be an easy way to find me and make my life miserable. Instead, it became the evidence that ended her reign over Riverside Meadows and sparked a conversation about HOA reform across Nevada. She played a stupid game and won a stupid prize. As for me, I am still here, still working from home, still maintaining my property, still living my life without drama. The trash is long gone. The fines were rescinded. The harassment stopped. I won. And sometimes, on a quiet evening when I am sitting on my back porch watching another Nevada sunset, I think about those 8 bags of garbage that started everything. Patricia Morrison probably spent hours planning that scheme, thinking she was so clever. She had no idea that those bags contained the evidence that would bring her down. There is probably a lesson in there somewhere about karma or hubris, or the importance of checking for security cameras before you commit crimes. But mostly, I just think it is funny. She tried to bury me in garbage and ended up burying herself instead. That is the story of how I caught my HOA dumping trash on my property and how fighting back changed everything. It was not easy and it was not always fun, but it was worth it. I have my peace, my home, and my dignity. Patricia Morrison has none of those things anymore. Sometimes you have to stand up to bullies, even when they wear polo shirts and claim to represent your community. Sometimes you have to say enough is enough and actually mean it. Sometimes you have to document everything, lawyer up, and refuse to back down even when it would be easier to just pay the fine and move on. I am glad I fought. I am glad I installed those security cameras. I am glad I found Daniel Matthews and glad I showed that footage at the board meeting. Every step of the process was stressful and exhausting, but the alternative was worse. The alternative was living under Patricia Morrison's thumb for years, paying bogus fines, dealing with constant harassment, eventually selling my house and leaving. That was what she wanted. She did not get it. I am still here, and she is not in charge anymore. That is victory enough for me.